Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 32 of Behind Enemy Lines Hockey Podcast. Trade deadline is passed. Coming up tomorrow is the next game, Toronto versus Montreal. We're going to touch base and just talk the trade that never was and a few other things. As always, joined by my friend and co-host Steve. Take it away, Steve.
Well, it's good to be back doing this one more time, and this one is probably a little bit of a maybe an episode out of frustration for our fan group. Like you said, we won't do a trivia question today. We'll get into the nitty gritty of trade deadline day. What happened? Why did it happen, or why didn't it happen, and what does that mean for our franchise and our team moving forward?
Mhm.
All valid points, and again, fan bases will be divided, but our general managers have made a statement, and I think it holds a lot of value to it. So we can dive in and talk about it and see if we can help those make as much sense as Toronto Maple Leaf playoff push at this time of the year.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to touch base real quick. Like I said, our next game is Tuesday night versus Toronto. But since the trade deadline, we've played two games. 6-5 loss to the Ducks, fourth in overtime, and a 4-3 win to the Kings against the Kings. So we got 3 out of 4 points. I honestly think we should have got all 4 points. Um, I think we were down 5-2 at one point against the Ducks, 4-2, and then came back, tie it up, and then ended up losing in overtime because, Monty couldn't stop a beach ball. But that's my own my own personal. I've had enough. I just don't know, like we talked about, send him on the coffee run because if he just should never be in the pipes again for Montreal the rest of the year.
Well, I'm okay with sending him on a coffee run, but we got to send him to Costa Rica. Let him pick his own beans.
Yeah,
And if people are questioning why, that's Marty won't get the urge to put him in if he's not
yeah,
there.
yeah,
So I'm all for it. He can
yeah,
grind him one by one while he's there
yeah.
and grind him.
Resist that temptation. Um,
Absolutely.
so I mean, other than that, I thought they played well. You know, they earned that point. I mean, they were out of it early. Um, I got a little bit worried on I believe it was the LA King or that game, first two shots, two goals. Fortunately, one was overturned on an offside. I believe it was like, I just don't, I think
That might be history in the making. The only goalie to allow the first shot in twice. Like
yeah,
you can't you,
you can't make this up.
you can't write shit. Like that doesn't happen. There's a junior B team, a tier two junior B team in Ontario, Canada. For those that, if you're not from Canada, listen to this. They're out in Stratford or somewhere out that way. The Legionnaires. They just completed their season at 0 and 50.
Oh, I did hear about that. Yeah.
0 and 50. Sammy would do them no favors.
Yeah.
The first shot twice. Come on.
Yeah.
I just don't get how that happens.
Yeah.
And then after, and a quick rant, after the second one goes in the second time, why does the coach leave that mother trucker in there?
Yeah.
Clearly it wasn't going to be his night. So we'll give you third time's the charm.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm flabbergasted. Let the memes begin. You and I have shared them all back and forth already about, David Ayers and all the, I'll post a few of these in the string when it goes up. And it's just, I
Yeah,
don't know.
and that's the deal we should have made. David Ayers coming out of the beer league
Yeah.
over to Montreal. We'll ship them Sam Montembeau. I'm all in to give them the old Canadian 2-4. I'll stop and get a 20 pack of Timbits, and I'll even throw in a pack of Export A's. Like we
And
can make this happen.
I'd be willing to retain 100% of the salary too.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let's dive into today's topic. We're going to
So
talk about,
I just want to touch base on something before we do that. You're
yeah.
right that we got three of a possible 4 points. For some reason, the Western trip always gives us a hard time.
Yeah.
Whenever we go into San Jose, Anaheim, LA, they're always tough games. That game that we won in LA, believe it or not, was the first time we've got a regulation win in LA since 2019.
Mhm.
And surprisingly, the goalie of record was Carey Price.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, a fun fact: I was at the game
Mhm.
the last time they'd won. That was the game where Carey Price tied the franchise record for wins by a goaltender. in Montreal.
Mhm.
So as a Christmas present from my much better half, and I say much better half, I'm not lying.
Yeah.
But just one of those ironic things that, that was the last time they won there. Just Carey Price, a goalie of record, and he hasn't played in quite some time.
Yeah. Wow. That's too long. But
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. Where
we've
am I
had some
going?
pretty awful teams the last few years. So
Yeah.
uh,
Where am I going with this? This team does not quit. Period. It doesn't matter whether we get down a goal, 2 goals, 3 goals, take 5 dumb penalties. We keep competing, and it's an uncanny characteristic with an NHL team, but that just serves the purpose of our youth and how they just want to play, and they play for each other unlimited. And we find a way to make it interesting. We call them the cardiac kids because I'm sure all of us are ready to have heart attacks every time they make a comeback. But the effort is there, and sometimes you get the result, sometimes you don't. But it was nice to sort of get the monkey off the back in LA.
do you remember the stat about I think Montreal has the most come from behind wins this year? It was like
20,
22. Is it 20?
20.
Like that's
Yeah,
crazy. That's a lot of games. What do they got? They got 30, 38 wins, something like that. So almost half of them, well,
yeah.
over half are come from behind wins.
Well,
So
yeah, we are. Yeah, it's again, it's uncanny, but I'll take it. They count the standings the same as a
yeah,
6-1 blowout.
yeah, for sure. Okay, so now we're gonna go on to trades.
Yeah, let's talk about the big deadline deals that we didn't
That we
make.
made, yeah. Okay, so I in the previous episode we had talked about, our expectations and what we thought might happen. And I had said that if we don't make two trades, I would be disappointed. Don't get me wrong, I'm disappointed, but I'm trying to give credit to Hughes because of his past, because, he's, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care about what other fans think, but for me, he's earned my grace, respect where, okay, let's just wait and see because nobody really knows. I mean, like you've said before, sometimes the best trade you make is the one you've never made. You know what I mean? Maybe excuse me, a deal came up that, they wanted to trade, they were asking for too much and like to just say, forget it, that's crazy, right? So what do you hear about this supposed trade, that was in the books or in the works and then the other team pulled out at the last minute?
Right. Well, if you go back to the chatter and all the stuff leading up to trade deadline day, we were in on possibly 3, 4, 5 players.
Mhm.
They were all veterans or specific needs. There was links to Bobrovsky and Bennington and net. There was links to Pareko, Zach Whitecloud on defense, Kadri, Ryan O'Reilly, Jordan Kyrou, Robert Thomas. But those players are all linked to other teams, not just us. The same teams that were on the bubble, contending type teams, were all in. Now, as we know, we got none of them. Why? That's $1 million question. If you listen to the press conference that Gordon gave and Hughes gave, Hughes talked about staying with the plan, trying to get players that fit into our long term, not trying to overpay for the short term. Trades speculated that fell apart at the last minute. And that sounds great. The respect, like you have said, is I will give the management team is they haven't led us astray yet. They've been great trying to get players in under the cap, try to get them team friendly money where we're not paying out every guy like Austin Matthews money to get like 7 goals and a bad mustache.
Yeah.
We're trying to build something to give us cap flexibility and player control while protecting assets. So because they've always done that, I'm in. I'm vested and I'll believe it. Am I disappointed? I think most Hab fans were disappointed, but Hughes said we weren't one player away. One player wasn't getting us a Stanley Cup, so the best deal he could do was not to deal it.
Mhm.
I tend to agree with that, and
Well,
here's
yeah, I was going
why.
to say, I think it's important that people don't forget that it would have been nice to get that one player and it would have put us to that next level, that next step. But let's be honest, we're not winning the Stanley Cup this year. Having said that, making the playoffs, anybody can win, but we're not a serious contender.
No, and that's what Hughes has said is we're not that team. We're not one guy away, so we're not going all in.
Mhm.
That the window for us to win is next year and the next 3 years after that. And he believes that we could be. They've also not speculated or not leak the player that they were interested in because they believe this is something that can be done in the off season.
Mhm.
So am I okay with that? I am. It sounds great. And the off season could come and draft day comes and free agency opens and we still don't have the deal. And then we're saying, okay, do we just buy another 3 months bag of shit? Because we're still no
Yeah,
closer.
yeah.
But like anything else, there's so many variables that go into this. So let's break it down quickly. Did we have to move Patrick Laine in deal number one in order to make the rest of them work because he's a big ticket salary cap guy?
Mhm.
Possibly. There was rumors that LA kicked the tires on him 3 or 4 times, but did they want a first round, second round, third round pick in order for LA to take him and we were going to get a fifth round pick back?
Mhm.
Was that not an asset that, the supplemental pick that we were going to give to make the deal work? Is that what Hughes and Gorton decided to shy away from? So did that kill the Nazem Kadri deal? Did Colorado swoop in at the last minute and say, hey, how would you like to come back home where you won a Stanley Cup? And then the player and agent were swayed to go back there.
Mhm.
So these are all things that happen, and any general manager isn't going to air his dirty laundry or his failed attempts because it doesn't do him good and it doesn't keep him integrity within the brotherhood of his general managers.
Mhm.
So I'm glad we didn't overpay just to get a guy that was 35 years old who doesn't, help
Mhm.
us and doesn't get because we're never going to let that player down or the management group. So, here's where I think we win the trade deadline. Theoretically, we just got Alex Newhook back. He's played 3 games. I think he's got 4 points in 3 games since coming back. So a guy who hasn't contributed in large part of the season. So it's sort of like the free player that you got without making a trade. And in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we could have a debut appearance by Michael Hage,
Mhm.
much like Demidov did last year. And if he comes in, is he the offensive player that can play in the third line or second line or wherever we're going to slot him in that gives us scoring from the wing position? So, these are things that sound great. They may not work out either, but at least from that point of view, that could be 2 players that are in our system that haven't been there that
Mhm.
could help us in the playoffs. So I'm okay with that. Where do I think the biggest need was? I think we need to upgrade the size, and I won't say offensive part because we get a lot of that from our back end, but I think we needed to stabilize our back end. Now, here's my hot take. Alex Carrier should not be on this team long term. He comes up with a big goal every once in a while, but he's 5'2.5" with his skates on, maybe. And when we talk about a back end, we have Hudson back there as well, and he might only be 5'4".
Yeah.
The thing is, Hudson is dynamic, and he proves that he can be dynamic. What does Carrier give us? He
Mhm.
gives us a bit of stability because he's traditionally known as a stay-at-home defenseman. But that guy has got to be a little bit more of a monster, a little bit more of a shot blocker, a little bit more of
Yeah.
a threat somehow.
Yeah.
So if we're bringing in a guy, what guy goes? Struble, Jack Guy, Carrier?
Mhm.
If you like the aggression side of the Struble and Jack Guy, Carrier has to go.
Mhm.
If you like the stability of Carrier, then one of Jack Guy or Struble has to go. And maybe it's easier to transition, and I'm just going to again speculate. Maybe it's easier to transition Jack Guy out. I don't want to see him go,
Mhm.
but maybe that's the deal in the off season where it stings less during the summer, and by training camp rolls around, it's kind of cooled down a bit.
Mhm.
But we're not giving other teams our garbage and getting all their assets. So whether we value Jack Guy higher or lower than general managers or other hockey fans, we got to make a move. So the speculation is it was a right shot defenseman that we were right in this to the end. It seems legit because again, for reasons we've both talked about, that's where we need the help.
Mhm.
But who was it? And I
Yeah.
know you and I talked about this just before we hit the go live button, and you can throw out the few names and we can talk about it.
Sure. I don't mind doing that. I think um, the obvious, like we talked about, White Cloud out of Calgary. I heard Nemish out of New Jersey was one. Pareko, obviously, out of St. Louis was another. And Vancouver, Ronick out of Vancouver was the four that I have heard from. Like, if you listen to like podcasters, blogs, and some of these people are in the know. You got like Elliot Friedman, who's, he's very well known, very well trusted. He's, talks to these guys regularly, and like you say, they're not gonna say, obviously, for lots of different reasons, because they're not going to ruin their own integrity, because nobody will ever deal with them again. They don't want to
Right.
they don't want risk getting, accused of tampering, all this stuff. So and again, I don't even think it's fair to ask them who was in the deal, because they're not going to tell you. But I mean, they can sort of say, well, it was this type of player, it was this type of, dollars we're talking about, whatever, but without actually confirming. So I guess I don't know if you want to just touch on them in general. Do you want to hit
Well,
each one, or
well
how do you
let's
want to do it?
let's break it down because in my opinion, there's one guy in one group and three guys in another group.
Mhm,
And we could do that in two different ways. So let's break it down by salary.
mhm,
Ronik's Philip Hronik is like 7.25 million. Colton Parayko 6.5 million. So big ticket guys. And then you have White Cloud who's like 2.3, and Nemec who's in that affordable thing. So if you're looking at the salaries, two guys were bigger ticket guys. So did we have to move out another bigger ticket guy?
mhm.
Two guys would have fit in if we sent a Struble or a Jack guy the other way. We could have even absorbed the extra contract because we're pretty close to cap compliant, and we could have thrown them a fifth round pick to even eat 50% of that.
Well, here's how I think that would have turned out. And you had mentioned a good point. It made me think of it about Line A and Line A and a first for a fifth, whatever. I think there was a subsequent trade in place, because we both agree that for any of these to make sense, of these big tickets, Line A's salary has to go, right? So I think whatever the deal for the defenseman is, Line A was involved with there somewhere, and it might even have been a three-team trade, that if Montreal could make this trade for that D man, I think Line A was going to LA for that, Line A and a first or second for the fifth or sixth round pick you were talking about, to make them, and that was only just to make the numbers all add up. So the story I heard is it was a big trade. There was some big names involved, and a lot of salary was getting moved around. And to me, that would explain why, it's going to be a three-team trade. There's obviously lots of dollars getting thrown around there, some big names, and like you say, like whether it be Ronick or Pareko, that's some big names and big salary coming the other way. And Ronick fits into the age group, the salary range, the term, all that stuff.
Yeah, and Vancouver, obviously being a team that's at the bottom of the league, would like to add some. Could we trade our first round pick at the draft day? With another asset like a Jack guy and something to
Mhm.
make it work for them. That might be something that gets them through the end of the after the end of the year,
Mhm.
where we can then free up the line A salary, maybe a Gallagher salary, and kind of go from there. So we do have, and Valeno's off the book, so he was only the $1 million anyways, but it's one contract because you're only allowed 50. So there's a multitude of variables. Now, the one thing we haven't touched base on, if we were interested in Pareko, did he have a no movement clause to Montreal?
Mhm.
Some of these guys have full no trades. He's one of them. Some of them have modified no trades, and a lot of players that are playing in the U.S. don't want to come to Canada because of the tax system we have here. Um,
Mhm.
and Ronick in Vancouver, he's already playing in Canada. He knows what this is all about. So I don't think he would have blocked a trade. I just think another trade fell apart last minute. They weren't able to put all their ducks in a row. Therefore, hey, not a good idea to pull the trigger.
Mhm.
That being the case, I'm glad we didn't panic and make three trades, lose a bunch of assets, go, not make it past the first round of the playoffs and say, boy, was that ever five bad decisions. You
Yeah,
know,
and I think you bring up the most important thing there, and I think what we talked about as far as the whole thing, the trade that never was. It's more important to me that we're not trading just for the sake of trading. Oh, our fans need us to do something, so we should make a trade deadline. Meanwhile, you've picked up a player that you really don't need, or you've given up way too much. You've given up Hage and a first round pick and whatever for a player that, you know, we would lose the deal, basically. So I just don't
Right.
see the sense of making a deal just for making a deal's sake.
Right. And I think that's where management went with this.
Mhm.
If the trade made sense, they were prepared to do it. It didn't make sense, they didn't do it. And
Mhm.
and I'm okay with that because the window to win a Stanley Cup could be a 2 or 3 year window,
Mhm.
right? Look at Edmonton. Edmonton's that team that's on that 2 or 3. They've been there 2 years in a row,
Mhm.
and they go from bad to worse. I think Edmonton might be the only team where if Montembeault went to play a net, it would be an upgrade, and that's a scary thought,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But like Edmonton is doing everything they can, but get a goalie. Then well,
Mhm.
they tried. They got Jari. Rumor has it they tried to deal off Jari at the trade deadline,
Yeah.
and nobody wanted him.
Well, apparently he's a problem with the players in their dressing room too. I've
Yeah,
heard that rumor that he's
yeah.
I don't want to say a cancer, but he's a little bit of a troublemaker.
Not an Aquarius.
Yeah. Boo.
But yeah. I mean, and again, so I have to respect our management team for not making those deals, some of those deals for the same reasons,
Mhm.
right? Like it's got to be the right fit. We talked about it before. We've got 2 episodes ago, when Vinny was with us, we talked about a culture. And I think that's part of why some of these trades are going to be hard for us. We're trying to fit in the needs and wants of the player and the individual, as well as the team and club culture,
Mhm.
and it's got to be right. So if that's a summer deal, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Dobson was a summer deal, and look how that's paid dividends for us.
Yeah, that worked out well. Yeah, and I think a summer deal is better anyways because it's the pressure of the trade deadline is off, where people aren't under the gun for, 6 p.m. trade deadline day to get something done and maybe forced into something. Summer, you've got, months to make a deal that is more sensible or a better deal for your team to make a true hockey trade, not a pressure trade.
And if any of these guys have no trade or no movement clauses, they have time to reevaluate. They don't have to do it within an hour. They can
Yeah.
reevaluate and say, we've talked to the guys in Montreal. We've had permission to do so. And, I think I want to go there. I've had some chance to talk to the players and why they love playing there now. So, some of these things are details that we never get. And you and I can speculate like the best of them. But it kind of aligns with the direction that the management is going and why they've done things. So I don't think that it's too far off the truth if I'm being honest.
Yeah. And nobody will ever really know. So it's not like anybody can call us out and say, "Oh, you're wrong," because they don't know either, right?
Yeah,
There's there's
I'm
there's
wrong a lot.
probably there's probably 4 or 5 people in the world that know the actual truth, and that's a couple GMs and a couple of agents, and that's it, right? Maybe a few of their family members. But so now that the deadline's gone or passed, trades haven't been made. Like you said, we got Newhook back. Liney's practicing, apparently can play whenever needed. I don't know if they'll put him in. Uh, Huge speculation that Hage is going to come up and finish this year once his NCAA season is over, which personally I know we both would like to see that. Now there's talk about bringing Fowler back up, and listen, I'm okay with that. Again, I've had it with Monty, and nothing makes me worse to see him get put in there all the time. And the first thing that goes to my head, and maybe I'm wrong, is it's because he's a French Canadian kid. They're trying to give him as many chances as they can. They want to play him, and like now's not the time for that. You're playing for playoffs and a playoffs position, and until you've secured that spot, I think you need to do what's best for the Wins, not what's best for the French Canadian kid. And I am hoping I'm wrong, but I just get the feeling that that's what's going on.
Something is amiss. I'd love to say I know the answer. It has to be because he's French Canadian. It's the only thing that makes sense. Why?
Mhm.
He has allowed the first shot in 25% of his starts this year to go in.
Twice.
Yeah, once, twice. Um, how does any goalie have an NHL job if you're letting the first shot in a quarter of the times you play?
Yeah.
He's played 16 games. 4 games, he's let in the first shot once, twice. And you can't make this stuff up. And again, yeah, he's got his 10 wins. So I'm happy for him. You
Mm-hmm.
know, a broken clock is right twice a day, even if it's got a cuckoo bird in the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we're in a position right now that if you follow the standings on the daily, we're in third place one day in the division, wild card the next day
Mm-hmm.
because of the games played. If we win and the other team loses, then we jump ahead, then they play the next game. We just have to stay neck and neck and make the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
right? Columbus got a little bit better. Buffalo got a little bit better. Their teams, Detroit got a little bit better. Boston didn't do anything. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not like, you know, and they're one of the teams chasing us. You know, so there's a, you know, Ottawa tried to get a little bit better, but they're a little bit further behind, so they need a little bit more of a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And the Leafs got much better.
Oh, absolutely.
So you know, I'm optimistic. I think we make the playoffs. I don't think it was a shoe-in like we could have talked about going into the Olympic break, because we didn't make those moves. But Hage comes in, he can play his 10 games, 9 games without burning a year of his contract. I suspect that he'll play only regulation games and go down to Laval for a playoff run because that's the best thing for his career,
Mm-hmm.
personally. I think Dobish has to play 75% of the games moving forward. I think our next 6 games are 3 back-to-backs. And you know Monty's going to play 2 of those games.
I'm just sorry, I am listening. I'm just typing in here to see when the NCAA hockey season is over.
Right. So if you think, okay, we come back, we play Toronto tomorrow, Dobish has to be in net. Has to be. After that performance against LA, 925 save percentage, you know, stop 37 shots or some silly number. He has to be the starter against Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would I be surprised if Montembeault played? No, I wouldn't, because and you know, this is where I almost hate to be almost right. He has played well against Toronto in the past.
Okay, well, on that note, according to Sportsnet, Dobesh is the confirmed starter for tomorrow night against Toronto,
And I'm okay with that.
and Wall probable for Toronto to start. So,
So, but you know, we are a hockey team that if we miss the playoffs, and the chances are we could miss the playoffs if we don't, you know,
mhm.
win 60% of our games. If we miss the playoffs, the trade deadline that we didn't participate in is going to look like a bigger mistake.
Mm.
So, what
I
can we
look at it a
control?
little bit different though. I look at the bigger mistake, and again, I was on the Habs Facebook page, Habs March Forward, having a discussion with a guy talking about Monty and games, whatever. And I basically had said, look at it this way. Uh, Dobish has a record 20 wins, 6 losses, 4 overtime losses, which is very impressive. 303 goals against, 890 save percentage. Monty's got 10 and 8, 10 wins, 8 losses, 6 overtime losses.
Four goals against.
Yeah, so he's basically got 10 wins, 14 losses in essence, right? I said, what if they had played Dobesh for even half of those games, and at the rate that was going, and Montreal had got even 2 more wins out of that, maybe 3 more wins out of that. Look
And
at
we're
where
we're
that would
tied
put. We're in
we're
first
tied
place.
with Tampa. We're tied with Tampa or Buffalo in first
Right.
place.
So for somebody to say, well, it's not that important, it doesn't make that, it makes a huge difference,
Yep.
especially now with the way the top 4 or 5 teams are so tight in the standings. That could be the difference between first place or wild card or missed playoffs. And
Yep.
like I said, I hope they're not playing him because he's French Canadian. I don't know what the deal is, but we need to be playing for wins. This is a crucial time of the year, crucial part of the season where every point matters.
Yeah. And you know, when you say we got 18 games or 19 games left, I don't care if Dobish has to play all 19 of them. If
Mhm.
we don't get into playoffs, what difference does a rest day make?
Yeah, yeah,
He'll rest in April for a
yeah,
long time.
yeah,
So we just got to get there,
yeah.
right? If we get secured in and we can't drop out of a wild card spot, you need to play Monty 1 or 2 games in the last 5. I'm all for it,
Mhm.
but it's not when the critical points are on the table,
Mhm.
right? So you know, but again, he Dolbish ain't playing every game the rest of the year. I know that.
Yeah,
So you know, Monty is going to play. I just hope it's minimum.
yeah. And I think we've got, I heard somebody say we've got like five back-to-backs coming
Yeah.
rest of the
Yeah,
season. So
I think we have 6 to finish the year.
six to finish the year. So, I mean, again, if he gets in on a couple of them, whatever. I mean, like you say, it's bound to happen. But I just don't. I don't know. I'm confused over a coaching staff and management team that seems to be so smart on one hand, but just throws this big air ball up and confuses the hell out of me.
And that's where at this point we're on the hook for the salary.
Mhm.
Send them to the minors, call up Fowler, ride the 2 young kids.
Yeah.
And if we don't make the playoffs, I'm okay with that because we tried,
Mhm.
right? The risk reward is there. Riding Monty and hoping and praying that the other team gets an influenza bug 24 hours before a game and them not being able to play doesn't, that's not a good bet.
Yeah.
Kalshi would not allow that, and it's not a shameless plug. I'm not endorsed by Kalshi. At no point am I getting a kickback from them, but that's not even something you can bet on and be guaranteed to win.
Yeah. So let's go real quick here. We're gonna go I went too far here. We're gonna go the regular season, the NHL regular season ends the 16th, I think, of April.
Yeah,
Thursday, April 16th. Uh NCAA season, if Michigan was to go the distance,
to the
the
Frozen
the
Four.
Frozen Four is the weekend of April 9th to 11th in Vegas. So he'd basically get a week. What we would have for games, do we want to jump that far ahead?
I think we have 2 or 3 games in that period.
Yeah. So we have the 14th against the Flyers, the 12th against the Islanders, the 11th against the Blue Jackets. Again, there's probably no chance if he plays the 11th in that game, he's not coming up for that. So there's 2 games for sure, which would be the 12th and the 14th. And then again, if he gets eliminated, Michigan gets out earlier. I mean, that's where you could see him in on that 11th versus the Blue Jackets. Um, and then on the 9th against Tampa, 7th against Florida. So I mean, he could get a few games. The 5th against the Devils. So again, depending on where he goes, Hage could get up and get 2 or 3 games, the same as Hudson did,
Yeah,
the same as Demidov. So
yeah.
I think it would be exciting. I think actually it would be a boost for the team. You know, you see the young kid in there, and
Well,
the players, they know his story. I think it would. I think they would like that too.
I mean, again, he plays a home game, and TSN regional in the Montreal Ottawa area will break records that night
Mhm.
because everybody knows a story about his dad, and his parents are from Montreal, and that whole scenario, and he passed away, and you've seen that draft footage, and they say Montreal's on the clock. You don't think, and someone says they're picking you, man, and like that whole, how can you not buy into this?
Yeah,
You know, and the second he officially gets a name and number on a jersey, that jersey's going to sell, right?
yeah,
Like they could put 1,000 in the gift shop there at the Bell Center, and they'll sell all 1,000 just because it
yeah,
is a feel good story. So,
yeah.
it's going to happen, folks. At one of these games, it's going to happen.
Mhm.
So, just be ready. Circle that on your calendar when you see Michigan lose out in the NCAA's. Hage is coming in.
The next game, if not the next one after that, for sure.
And Kalshi, you can take that one and make a bet. I will take a small kickback of 0.072 cents of the $1 million that you might make as a Kalshi plug. So,
Yeah, good.
please write, subscribe, follow, get us an endorsement for a sponsor for the show. We'll
Yeah,
take the
there you
seven
go.
dollars that we might get in residuals.
There we go. Okay. Did you anything else you want to discuss on that before? Because I think we're gonna end. We're gonna talk about the Toronto Montreal game. That's what we'll end.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this point, we're speculating on the whys. We can beat this all day long, come up with new scenarios. The bottom line is we didn't do anything. Now
Mhm,
it's ride or die, and I hope it's ride.
mhm.
Right. I hope this isn't I hope this isn't a scenario where it dies quick. So, I think we make the playoffs. It's gonna be a dogfight right to the end, but I think we have proven with the players we've got enough to compete and not quit all the way right to the end.
Yeah, and I think um we have the horses, we have the players, and again, I don't know why everybody. it's starting to get to the point where I'm getting frustrated, where people talk about, Nick Suzuki, he's not the player, he's not, you know what I mean? Nick Suzuki, in my opinion, is in the top 10 players in the league. The way he plays, he's not going to get you top 10 points, but his game as a whole, he's in the top 10 players in the league. The number of people that I talk to that are, my friends that guys that I ref with or run into hockey, whatever, they watched him at the Olympics, they whatever, and they say to me, man, that guy's a player. Like he can play, right? Right now, since the Olympic break, he's got 9 points, 3 goals, 6 assists in the last 5 games. So, I mean, he's putting up the numbers, and now when they need him, and they need him to put up the numbers at the crunch of the season, he's doing it.
Yeah, and again, he does it quietly because he's not the guy that gets a hat trick every night.
Mhm,
It was a heck of a shot to win the game against LA. He
mhm,
had a goal and 2 assists. I
mhm.
mean, that line, Slav got 2 goals, and I can show you on Messenger. I did call that. I called the Slav deuce that game. Kalshi, I'm onto this. Come on, hook me up. But he goes about it as a quiet leader does, and that's why he's respected. It's not about the highlight reel goal for him. He plays 200 feet. He plays 80 feet wide, and you talk about where he's at. He's still on pace for career numbers. He's got 74 points at this point. Yeah, it's a far cry to McDavid's 108, but when you put him into the statistical group of who's around him in the standings and where do you value them, he's up there with Shifley and Kaprizov and Marty Necas, that are all within a couple of points of him. Matt Boldy, Bouchard, Jason Robertson, and Dallas. These are all guys that are in that 74 to 76, 77 point range. So he's up there. If he's not in the top 10, he's 1 or 2 points out from being in seventh because he's having that kind of a season.
Yeah. And it doesn't look like it's slowing down. It looks like he's getting better as the season goes on, it seems.
He gets quiet credit from his teammates. They're all, when they talk about, hey, what was important? The captain put it on his back again. He
Mhm,
does captain things. He does Nick Suzuki things, and they take. It's not that they take it for granted, but they take it for granted.
mhm.
They need something. He's a captain that shows up, not like a guy that wears a blue maple leaf.
Okay, so on that, let's talk about the upcoming game against the Leafs. Like you said, it's tomorrow night. Well, tonight now we're past midnight here now. Um, again, Toronto versus the Leafs. Like I said earlier, Dobesh is confirmed starter. Wall for Toronto. Uh, what do you see happening in this game?
Well, we're in that we can't have a slow start mentality again.
Mhm,
Um, do I expect a win? Yes. I think we win this game 4-2, 5-2 kind of mentality.
mhm,
Um, one thing I can count on is Austin Matthews can be invisible for 3 weeks heading into a game, and Montreal's on the schedule, and he finds a scoring touch.
yeah.
Willie Nylander finds a scoring touch. These players, they're rivalry games for them, so they always score against us.
Mhm.
Um, but I think overall they are just a depleted roster. They are bringing kids up that they never would have gave a look to. This is a downfall to their depleted farm team. Now they're grasping at straws, and they traded out Scott Lawton, and go Ontario native, or Oakville native from Ontario. Scott Lawton leaves the Leafs, and he's got goals in back-to-back games. Couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Um, and again, in the last time we played them, Lawton got a late goal against us, a breakaway goal. So, I expect a 4-2, 5-2 win. I suspect the first period to be hard fought, and we will grind them down and beat them up in the second and third period. And I don't think we lose the game.
Yeah, I'm gonna be with you on this. And no surprise, everybody knows I most of the time predict a Montreal win, but for a couple different reasons, not the least of which I mentioned earlier. I think Montreal's players, Suzuki, he's really picking it up right now. Caulfield seems like he can't touch the puck without scoring. Slav's game's taken another, he's gone to another level. So I think the defense, although we are, lower in the league, 20 something, 23 in goals against, um, our defense is a little bit better than that. And I think part of the problem, again, I hate to do it, but our goaltending is what's been the problem. We haven't had the key saves when needed to be made. Dobesh gives us a better chance to make those saves. So I think we have a better chance to win. But again, I think for the reason you mentioned too, Toronto's traded out a lot. They are a beaten team. They are defeated mentally. Like it's like if you look at some of these guys, it looks like they don't even want to come to the rink. Like they're not even, they're not interested. They're just cashing their check and going through the motions.
Yeah, and that happens when expectations are extremely high and results are extremely low
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like no matter what you do, it doesn't work. There's big changes coming in Toronto in the offseason.
Yeah.
Berube should be worried that he won't have a job,
Mm-hmm.
and rightfully so. Um, I love their general manager who came in last year, Brad Trelosing, because he's doing a good job at that.
Mm-hmm.
And it couldn't happen to a nicer franchise. He
Mm-hmm.
tore apart the Calgary Flames, and 2 years into his tenure here, Trelosing is doing exactly that. He's losing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Toronto right now is, believe it or not, trivia question worthy. Name the only team in the NHL that hasn't got a regulation win since the Olympic break. The answer: the Toronto Maple Leafs. Surprise, surprise, Captain Obvious, right? Um, but if you go back to even a 15 game stretch before that, they lost six, won three, and they've lost seven. They've really only got 3 wins in their last 16 games.
Yeah.
So
I,
it's been slim pickings in
yeah.
Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we both agree. I think you were saying the 4-2 win. Um, if we can get out of, to me, Montreal lately seems to have a notoriously bad second period. If we can get out of a second period with a pretty good effort, I see a 5-2 win kind of thing, uh, for for the boys in the Blue Blanc Rouge, and that would be a great night. Again, our two favorite teams happen to be the same team tomorrow night, so it's going to be good to watch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I said, I root for 29 teams in the NHL. Montreal and anybody playing Toronto, and well, that's a doubleheader tomorrow. So
Yeah.
Toronto to lose and Montreal to win sounds a good way to spend a Tuesday midweek.
Okay. So with that, we're going to jump right into final thoughts. What do you want to close us out with?
Um, I understand the trade deadline scenario. You can go through, root cause analogy, why you make trades, why don't you make trades, what is the purpose of making trades. If you break it down and if you're listen to this episode twice. We talked about quite a few things. We're bound to be right on some of them, bound to be wrong on others. But I think that the management group is doing the right thing by the fan base. They're trying to build a winner, a proverbial winner. So I'm optimistic and I'm not disappointed because we have been relevant all year. Last year we had to catch, claw and scratch our way to get into the playoffs. We seem to be there. Um, it's bright skies and sunny days for our franchise moving forward,
Mhm.
regardless of what happens at the end of this year.
Mhm. Yeah, I think for me, I'm very optimistic. I can't remember where I seen it, but I believe since the Four Nation break last year, Montreal's got the third best record in the NHL since the Four Nations last year, which says a lot of how they're playing. Um, I think Toronto, I think we're going to have to take the Tonawanda dumpster fire label off of Buffalo and put it on Toronto. We'll have to call it, the what we call it, the Rouge River roustabout or something.
Oh
I don't know. It's
yeah,
just getting bad. It's getting horrible. And I know myself and every other Habs fan, we're enjoying it too.
yeah, I will eat a bit of crow on the Buffalo Sabres dumpster fire thing. They have corralled the troops and they've been playing dynamite hockey. As of this podcast, they're in first place in the division. Nobody would have saw that coming.
Mhm.
Um, Do I think they're for real? No, I think the playoff collapse is going to happen. Just because they didn't upgrade their goaltenders, and
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Maybe the goalie with the best name, the Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I don't think he's your answer in net.
Yeah.
But again, they're playing well, and take a winning streak is a winning streak. It doesn't matter how many games you do it, but they are doing a lot of it. So hats off to the
Mhm.
Sabres. Finally, I guess it's good for Buffalo that they've turned that corner. Um, it's been fun to watch. I mean, that game against Tampa the other night, 8-7, 5 fights. It was it
Yeah.
was entertaining.
They
You
made some
know,
pretty solid moves at the trade deadline too. I mean, three or four, they've beefed up, they've ramped it up. I think they're all in this year. Um,
yeah,
which Montreal not making a move. Although I am disappointed, as I said earlier, I'd like to see them make them two moves. In the same sense, I'm not because I think Hughes and Gordon are playing the long game. They're not playing for 1 or 2 year Stanley Cup window. They're playing for a 10-year strong, solid team that could win any year instead of just going in all in on 1 2 years and then tear it down and rebuilding again. I think that model seems to be the most common thing that NHL teams do. But if you look at the teams in the past, you look at the most obvious example to me, Detroit. Detroit was so good for so long because they played the long game. They weren't afraid to make moves that needed to be moved at the right time and not just for making a move's sake.
20 years straight in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You
And,
know, and those are things that I think every organization should look at.
mm,
At some point, you still got to make the run, and if you know your window is closing, 2 years, you try to do what you can.
mm,
And then it's going to come at the cost of another rebuild. But I think with the salary cap era and everything else that is going on, unfortunately, that's going to be the way. Toronto is going through that right now. They did the core four, core five, mistake three, whatever we want to call them. And now they're at a breaking point where they're going to have to tear it down again
yeah,
and do another rebuild, restock, and try and redo this one more time
yeah,
because they ran their 10 years without winning
yeah. And their
because
problem
they
is
were in
they've got nowhere to rebuild from. They got
no,
no
and that,
draft picks. They got no prospects. So
but
they're
that was the problem,
Yeah, they're
right?
in a hurting way, and I think their fans, some of their fans are starting to wake up and realize that this is going to be bad for a while, not just 1 or 2 years. They're going to be bad 5 years. They're going to be bad.
Right. But they were in the playoffs 9 straight years. I mean, they tried to build for the long term. They just didn't have it dialed in like we seem to be with the $7 and $8 million guys, not the $12 million guys.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we built a longer depth roster to cover off. So I think our management team is doing the right thing.
yeah. I would agree. So we're both predicting a win. We both enjoying the Leafs' misery. And we're both okay with how the trade deadline worked out. Obviously, you know, if giving up too much for a guy was the going to be the issue, then we're both in agreement on that. Anything you
And
want to add in before I sign off?
and I hope we're not eating Blue Crow tomorrow, both of us.
Yeah. Okay. With that, it's going to conclude this episode of Behind Enemy Lines Hockey Podcast. Thanks for watching. Remember, hit the like, share, subscribe button, comment, let us know what you think. And always good to see you, hear from you. Talk to you later. And as our friend always says,
Keep your stick on the ice.